Are the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Houston Rockets the number 1 and number 2 teams with the most likely odds to land Kevin Durant? Zach Lowe seems to think so. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Plus, the Pelicans reportedly have trade offers for Herb Jones and Trey Murphy III, but they're not necessarily keen on him. We'll talk a little bit about that. And the Knicks continue to set their sights high on their next head coach and keep being disappointed. We're going to talk about all those things and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to start off with Zach Lowe's comments on his recent podcast. He said this. He would put the Timberwolves at number 1 in the Buzz rankings in the Durant Sweepstakes with the Houston Rockets number 2. Earlier this week, Shams did say that the T-Wolves, the Rockets, the Miami Heat, the New York Knicks, and San Antonio Spurs were the teams that have expressed the most interest in potentially acquiring Kevin Durant. So let's put this in perspective here, right? The Houston Rockets, I've always said, have the most assets that they can offer. The combination of young players and picks, they have the most that they can offer. How much of that they're willing to give up is the question there. That's always been the question, is how much they're willing to give up. But I don't really think too many teams could outprice the Rockets if the Rockets were willing to put anything on the table for Kevin Durant. If they just said, we have to have Kevin Durant by any means necessary, I don't think there's a team that can outbid them. I just don't, right? Now, that does not necessarily mean that that's going to be the Rockets' plan. The Rockets could very well, especially with teams like Miami in the mix, I think that actually is, I'm going to start off, if I'm a team and I hear that Miami's in the mix, and I know that Miami doesn't really have much to offer unless they're putting Khalil Ware on the table to potentially be a trade piece there, which is, their best young player, I would say, and salary matching, and even the 3 first-round picks that they can move, those picks don't compare to potentially to what the Houston Rockets or the young talent that's kind of more proven than the Rockets would have to offer there. So I don't think that if I'm the Rockets, that I'm putting I'm mortgaging a lot of my future to get Kevin Durant if a team like the Miami Heat is on your list. But even the Spurs, right? The Spurs, the Houston Rockets, they have tons of assets. They have young players that they can put on there. But with Minnesota being in on that, it's going to be interesting to see what that offer ends up being, right? If Minnesota's offered to Kevin Durant is some version of Julius Randle and or Naz Reid if they do opt into their contracts, right? But keep in mind, they can't be traded unless they decide to opt into their deals next season, and that's probably unlikely to happen by the draft. And that's when reportedly the Phoenix Suns want this trade to go down, is by the NBA draft. This could happen next week, so that's not really an option there, right? And Anthony Edwards is not in the consideration at all, right? Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels, those are 2 players with $35 million, $24 million contracts that maybe they're the only other players making more than $20 million on the books for Minnesota next year. So that's the question. Durant's $54 million is the thing that's going to be weird here. Right now, he is eligible for a 2-year extension worth up to $122 million, which it seems like he does want that extension to be more than just a 1-year rental for whatever team trades for him. But a pairing of Anthony Edwards and Kevin Durant, it makes sense, especially in the Western Conference, especially with what the Minnesota Timberwolves have done the last couple of years. It makes sense. Make no mistake about it. And I'm not taking away from them deciding that they want that. But the question is how would they get it done? What are they going to get it done? It's going to be tough. Yeah, Julius Randle has a contract next year for $30.9 million on a player option, but does he opt into that with enough time for them or right now for them to trade into it? So that's the question that it all comes down to, man. And I don't know how this is going to shake out. I just don't know how this is going to shake out. Minnesota, like I said, to pair Anthony Edwards with Kevin Durant, I like the idea of that. I like the concept of that. But then what do you do with the rest of your team? What are you giving up in that type of scenario? You can't do sign-in trades, not with the timeline that we've heard that the Phoenix Suns want to get this trade done with, especially if they want draft capital in this deal. You can't do that. So, watching this whole thing and seeing how it shakes out is going to be really fun to watch out for. But this is really kind of, that this is the big deal that everybody's looking to happen first. And what happens based off this is really going to determine a lot, I think, going forward into the rest of the offseason. This is the kind of tone-setting move this offseason, right? And so, Giannis expected to stay now in Milwaukee, but you have other players that could be on the move, like Anthony Simons. We don't know what the hell, the Pelicans are going to do, which we're going to talk a little bit about them coming up next. But there's still shaped up to be a very wild offseason this year. You got teams that are looking to move off their picks or combine picks to move up, which is naturally going to lead to some player movement as well. But Kevin Durant is kind of the thing that starts all of that. He's going to jumpstart that whole entire process. And I guess we see what happens. But let me know down below. Hearing that the Houston Rockets and the Minnesota Timberwolves, according to Zach Lowe, may be number 1 and number 2 in regards to teams that are going to make a trade for Kevin Durant. Does it make sense for both teams? Which team do you think it makes most sense for? And how do you see the Minnesota Timberwolves getting there as far as offer-wise? And that fits also into the CBA. Let me know that and what you guys think on that down below. Moving into the next one, there was a rumor that came out around yesterday that I didn't get a chance to do a video on, that Herb Jones to the Philadelphia 76ers. That was a rumor that came out. Now, Fletcher McHale, who is a insider with the Pelicans, shot that rumor down, going so far as saying, I'm told from an NBA source that rumors and speculation of Herb Jones being traded to the Philadelphia 76ers as part of Nolan moving up to number 3 in the draft are BS. And that talk is probably coming from the 76ers, who are trying to up the price for the 3rd overall pick, which is something that we know that teams do. Teams, they use tactics, they use ploys to try to gain more interest and rise their standing when it comes down to it. He went on to say that no one on the Pelicans is untouchable, right? We know that. But Joe's Dumars is receiving calls about many players, but it would have to take a wow offer to move Herb or Trey. So that's what the writer wrote there on that one. And that puts us to the point of that the Pelicans reportedly are still open to a lot of trades on their roster, but they're not giving things away. And that's the thing that I think, as fans sometimes, and even pundits and writers, when you hear something like, yeah, a team's willing to move everyone on their roster, everybody automatically goes to thinking that they're just giving away pieces. No, it's about the value that they hold for those pieces and how they can get future assets or assets that can help when it comes down to it. So if you're looking to get Trey Murphy III or Herb Jones from the Pelicans, it's not going to come with a low ball offer. It's just not going to come with that. You're going to have to give up something that absolutely matters when it comes down to it, right? And so, yes, they're looking to replenish some draft capital. They gave up a lot when it came down to getting CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Devontae Graham, and they're looking to recoup some of that. Now, some of that may come from moving some of those guys as well. DeJounte is a guy that I think would garner some interest out on the trade market if he's truly available out there, and we could see him moved eventually between now and the trade deadline. But Trey Murphy III and Herb Jones are pieces that you build with, right? And if that's the case, you're not going to come in and just get those guys for a little bit of nothing. No trade is imminent, but then again, with the movement that's expected to happen in this offseason, it can go from not imminent to being announced in a day or two. I think a lot of this is going to come to after the draft. I think a lot of seeing where the dust settles with a lot of these rumors, a lot of the picks, a lot of everything else after the draft is going to be key there. That's where you're going to see a lot of the smaller moves be done. Big chips maybe on draft night, some smaller things that are going to happen after that point in time. And I think Trey Murphy III, like when you look at the value of contract that he has in it, 24 years old, when you look at how he evolved from a role player into a starter, averaging 21 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3.5 assists last year with really good efficiency, 58% true shooting efficiency on that, and 36% beyond the arc on the three-point line. This is not a player you just give up for nothing. That's a player that you're going to have to give me. You're going to have to make me a hell of an offer if you want to get Trey Murphy III off me. As far as Herb Jones, he's the prototypical 3-and-D player, like that can really fit in just about any system. I struggle to think any type of team that Herb would not fit in on, right? And so because of the versatility of those guys and the upside that's still there in a guy like Trey Murphy III, I tell you what, you don't give that up for nothing. Trey Murphy III could be looked at as a missing piece for some championship teams. He just could. And so because of that, you're like former 17th overall pick, you're not getting that for nothing. He has 3-level scoring, a secondary playmaking abilities there, a quick release when it all comes down to. You're not getting Trey Murphy III for pennies. What the hell is wrong with people? What the hell? So I think that all plays a part into all of this as well. So look out, though. But the Pelicans being a team that has players that other teams could be interested in, those veterans that I mentioned earlier that they acquired, CJ McCollum, DeJounte Murray, Devontae Graham, those are players that I would look to see that the Pelicans are probably going to be more willing to move off of while they build something younger. They still want to build around Zion reportedly. That's all fine and dandy. People have their problems with it. I do as well. But I think when it comes down to it all, like, they have a path and they have a direction that they have now decided on going. They're going to see that direction through, and that direction includes Zion still being the focal point of a lot of what they do there. And that just is what it is when it comes down to it. So we'll see what happens with the Pelicans. Not to say that I don't think they may not try to move up in the draft or something like that. That could very well happen. But I think it's going to be a calculated risk if the Pelicans make that choice this offseason. So we'll see what happens there. Let's move on into the last topic for this morning, and that is the New York Knicks, who have gotten turned down for so many other teams' coaches, apparently had their sights set also on John Calipari. Now, that is the Arkansas head coach, John Calipari, who just took that job not too long ago. But apparently a key member of the Knicks front office spoke with Calipari about the team's head coaching vacancy, and the talks were just exploratory, and they went nowhere after that. Now, I got to give credit to the Knicks. They set their sights high. Ime Udoka, right? Chris Finch, Jason Kidd, Billy Donovan. Like, they went after coaches that are kind of more proven things, even though some of those coaches have some issues, right? And then now they're reportedly pivoting towards Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown, which makes a lot of sense there. I do think Mark Jackson should be on that list, but it is what it is when it comes down to it. But the Knicks are taking this thing seriously, and it seems like, to me, by the coaches that they've gone after and the fact that they have looked and prioritized those coaches first, it does seem like this is a team that realizes, hey, we are still in the mix here in the Eastern Conference, and we don't want to take a step back if we can avoid it. We want a new coach that's going to be able to come in here and build off of what Tom Thibodeau did, but they're looking for a coach kind of in the different mode. That's reportedly why Mike Malone is not one of the coaches on their target list, is because they feel like that's too much in the same mode of a Tom Thibodeau, and they're looking for something different. Even though I think Mike Malone is a different head coach, I think that some of the issues he's had with going into the depth of the bench has been because there just hasn't been depth there. But we'll see what happens. The Knicks have struck out on a lot of coaches, and we'll see what the Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown thing end up happening. As soon as something comes down, if a coaching hire is announced, we'll drop an episode. But let me know what you guys think down below with the Knicks and their coaching search. How do you feel about it? Do you think they've gone about this the right way, at least setting their sights high first? And then as far as Taylor Jenkins and Mike Brown, the two coaches that they are reportedly focusing on now, which coach do you think makes the most sense for the New York Knicks and could help the Knicks get to an NBA Finals? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBACentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. I'll see you guys the next time I feel like making an episode. Prior tomorrow. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.